I think we all agree that nothing beats that classic smoked beefy brisket flavor that you get in an offset smoker. But if you don't own an offset smoker and you want to do one yourself, or you're like me that has one and you just don't always have time to use an offset smoker, today's video is going to teach you how to make a Texas style brisket on a pellet grill. Come on. This process is actually going to start the day before when we trim it up and dry brine it. Now we're just going to focus on a few areas with trimming. We're going to make sure it has a good amount of saturation or fat on the top, about a 1/4 inch or so. Leave a little bit more if you like it. I think that a 1/4 inch renders down enough that you have a good fat flavor, but also it doesn't keep the salt and the smoke from penetrating. Then we're going to worry about the shape. And, unlike an offset smoker and a pellet smoker, you don't really have to worry about sharp ends, but I do it just out of habit, and I think it looks prettier. And then we're going to worry about silver skin. Silver skin is going to keep that smoke and salt from penetrating and, makes a prettier bark. After we get it all trimmed up, we're going to take some Uncle Steve's All-American SPG and give it a heavy cover on both sides. And I like to place it on a wire rack in a shallow pan, throw it in the fridge overnight, just to allow the air to circulate, let that salt penetrate all the way through without it sitting on its own juices, because what we really want it to do is to expel those juices and then reabsorb them, thus dry brine, because we're not adding any juices. We want it to expel it, reabsorb it with that salt content. The next morning, we're going to take our brisket that's been dry brining all night out of the fridge, and we're going to hit it with another layer of flavors. Now, today I'm going to be using Unclestevesshake Texas Cajun, and this is a reapply shake, so we'll put some more on later, but we're going to give it a good coat right now. As we're coating that, we are going to crank up our Green Mountain Grill's Jim Buoy. We're setting that thing at 225 degrees, low and slow for the first couple of hours. Go ahead and get it turned on. And as soon as it's up to temp, let's put our brisket on. Now you're going to notice I've got an extra shelf in my Green Mountain Grill's Jim Buoy. No, that's not stock or bought. That's custom made. It's real nice, right? But I like to use a rack. I like to keep it up off the bottom because it is so close to that heat from the pot. I do cook it fat side up when it's on a shelf. If you don't have a shelf, I would consider cooking it fat side down just to give it a little bit more barrier of protection. So 225 degrees, fat side up on a shelf for 2 hours. After 2 hours, we're going to crank it up to 250 degrees for 3 hours. And we're not going to look at it or probe it or do anything every time we make these adjustments. We want to keep that door closed. We want to retain all the heat, and we're trying to build bark and flavor. I'm not going to wrap mine, but if you choose to wrap, this would be the time to do it. I am going to check it out and look to see if it needs any spritzing, and this one sure doesn't. It's been pretty humid here lately, so no spritz needed today. We're going to keep rolling at 275 degrees, and I am going to go ahead and place a probe in this. Now, my Green Mountain Grills does have Wi-Fi, and it does have a temperature probe attachment to it, and so I'm just going to stick it in there and start monitoring my brisket. Now, we're not cooking to temperature, but I do want to keep an eye on it because I do know that when it hits right around 200 degrees, I need to start feeling around for probe tenderness. After a total of 7.5 hours into the cook, it's sitting right about 190, 195 degrees, and it's still just not probe tender. We're going to keep letting it roll, letting it keep building that bark. Nine and a half hours in, so that gives me right around an hour per pound. I think this was 12 pounds before I trimmed it, so I'm guesstimating it was 9.5 to 10 pounds afterwards. It's probe tender, it looks good, it feels good. At this point in time, I am going to wrap it up and let it rest for just a little bit. Remember, we cooked it low and slow, so a long rest isn't exactly needed. After about a 2-hour rest, I get to slice this up and taste it and try it out. And I'll tell you right now, guys, it was a little bit overcooked. I took it a little bit too far, but it was really good. It was a tasty brisket. It's not overcooked per se, but for my personal preference, I like to be able to have a good slice and it hold up under its own weight. This was just pretty tender. It was just very tender. And so I wouldn't say that it's burnt or overcooked like a roast would be, but take it how you will. But let me tell you, this pellet smoker brisket turned out phenomenal. Absolutely delicious. Hit it with a little bit more Unclestevesshake Texas Cajun after I got it out and rested it on top, because it is a reapply rub. Let me tell you, that flavor kicked it off. It was so good. I think if you have the ability to adjust a time and adjust a temperature 3 times a day, or if you have one like mine where you can bridge it to your Wi-Fi at home, or a lot of the other units where you can bridge it to the Wi-Fi at home and you can control it by your phone, you can do this. This is a super simple brisket recipe, minimal work, minimal concentration and attention needed, and you got a phenomenal brisket in the end. Guys, if you like this, if it came of any value to you, make sure you like and subscribe. Comment down below what kind of smoker you have. And remember, guys, we love you. Drink more water.